true.
Shubhra, I think I suggest that we start with the first session, and we'll request Dr. Methli to join after that. Maybe she still has some technical issues. So
Yes.
we'll invite her after the first speaker has done with the presentation.
Okay, okay. Once again, Dr. Dushyant, I welcome you, and this now the stage is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me share my PPT. Yes, so the topic is academic integrity and plagiarism. Since we talk a lot about research, that these two aspects are very important. Even I think in teaching academic integrity, that it is essential, and that's why I chose to discuss this thing right here. Uh, Today in universities, right, some of the facts you may say. There was a survey by India Today, was in the special issue on higher education, published in February 2019. There they say that between 40 to 70% of all college students have admitted cheating. They have copied from others during examination or tests. Then there is another, you can say, a kind of survey. Times of India, of course, it was a portal online, indiatimes.com. There again, right, they have come up with right some identification of the factors in a way that influence dishonest behavior. Why researchers, uh, in a way, seek some dishonest means or they behave right dishonestly. So these are some of the reasons or factors in a way that they have identified. First of all, there is competition and pressure. Today, I think since UGC has made it mandatory that one should have a research degree, that is a PhD degree, mandatory, even for entry level job, right, like assistant professor. It means there is a lot of competition and there is a lot of pressure that one should always have PhD degree. Another reason or factor that is faculty perceived as uncaring or indifferent. So that is also one of the factors. And lax attitude, lethargic attitude of faculty towards dishonesty, even peer pressure to support a friend in research that happens sometimes, right? Your friend is working on something and you help him or her, right? But when she or he feels something, then there is campus culture also, which is tolerant of dishonesty. Right? We have seen best of institutes where dishonesty is not, of course, tolerated, but at the same time, right, we have seen such universities that they are almost selling, right, these kind of degrees of PhD as well, research degrees as well. So these are some of the factors, and that's why, in a way, why dishonest behavior, right, persists. Then why honesty in academics or research is necessary? First of all, when you are honest, people will trust you. Right? And when people will trust you, because you are employing fair means, right? If it is for teaching, then fair means of teaching. If it is research, then fair means of research. And in return, of course, you get respect. Of course,
Excuse
it
me,
is
sir, your
very
voice
important.
is inaudible.
Hello, yes.
Nothing
Sir,
is
actually,
understood.
nothing. No,
Please
nothing
check
is not
the
understood.
voice.
Dolly ma'am, he is audible, but sir, a bit of shaky. Your voice is bit echoing actually.
I see. Okay, okay,
It's audible, but not exactly. It's not clear.
okay, okay. Yeah.
It's, sorry, sir.
So in return, right, in fact, you get some responsibilities, key responsibilities in a way. And of course, it gives you courage. And that's why honesty in academics, right, in research is very important. Then, where do students learn ethical decision making? Of course, the mentor, the advisor, you may call teacher as well. They learn from us, right? Being suppose if I'm a supervisor, my research scholars would understand the seriousness of plagiarism if I'm very vigilant about it. Then, of course, fellow students can teach ethical decision making. Then, family, of course, plays a very vital role, the environment in which we live. Then, friends, not in their institutes. Then, other faculty members. Then, religious beliefs, discussion in courses, labs, seminars. Then, professional organizations, courses dealing with ethical issues. Right? So in that sense, in fact, students learn ethical decisions from all these sources. Then what is academic integrity? Clement says this right in one of the books, that honesty to oneself and others. Then trust and open communication between students and faculty. Then fair treatment and mutual respect between faculty and students. Personal responsibility to assist in preventing cheating. Ethics. One can observe the ethical behavior through habits. Of course, if one is sincere, one is honest, then you can say that one is behaving ethically. Then truthfulness, of course, plays a very vital role. Respect for self and others. It is not only right the respect for self, but how you respect others as well. Then respect for time. Right? That is also very important. In research, I think it plays a very vital role. Respect for work as well, and respect for our environment where we work. Why ethics in research? Why? It's important. In fact, there are some ethical codes and regulations when you talk about research. Suppose we have a great example of Nazi medical experiments in Germany during Hitler's time, during Second World War. Right? In fact, there had been so many such. Right? This will give you a very clear-cut idea why I'm saying this. That Nazi medical experiments, right, it was the best example of unethical research. 1933 to 1945. These activities, unethical medical experiments, right, were implemented by these Germans in Europe. These were the programs, sterilization, euthanasia, and numerous right experiments to produce the pure Germans or Aryans as they claim. And all of them were unethical research activities, unethical experiments, medical experiments. Then conflicts of ethics. People may disagree on ethics because it is based on people's personal value systems. And that's why perhaps I think you cannot pinpoint, say, right, that this is ethical behavior and this is non-ethical behavior. Because ultimately it branches from a person's personal value system. And perhaps sometimes it may happen that the person is not very clear about it. What one person considers to be good or right may be considered bad or wrong by another person. Hitler considered that unethical research activity right or good, good for himself or for the Germans. But it was not at all good, it was bad, it was wrong for the whole world. Right? So that ultimately when we talk about ethical behavior, and that's why it is very difficult to identify. Now, there are three sets of obligations of researchers to adhere to professional standards. First one is an obligation to honor the trust that their colleagues place in them. Suppose when a research scholar is registered under a supervisor with one university, it means it is expected, it is an obligation, right? In a way that the research scholar should work ethically. Then an obligation to themselves, irresponsible conduct in research can make it impossible to achieve a goal. And therefore it happens that sometimes unethical means, if one employs, it's not only the research scholar but the supervisor also has to bear the consequences. And then an obligation to act in ways that serve the public. Right? So in a way, at large, whenever a research scholar is doing something, he or she is of course contributing to the public at large. And that's why, right, in a way, the ethical standards of, should be adhered to by professionally by the research scholar. Now, what is plagiarism? In fact, if you look at various definitions, you will realize that, in fact, they talk very different things. So, in a way, you can say that there is no particular, right, in a way, method of identifying that this is plagiarism. If you look at some of the dictionaries, like suppose Merriam-Webster, which I have cited over here, it is online dictionary. It says that plagiarism is the act of stealing of work or idea or language without proper acknowledgement to the author and source. Now, if you understand this definition that Merriam-Webster online dictionary says, that what is plagiarism? It is act of stealing of work. So somebody has worked on something, right? And that idea or word or language, without acknowledging them, without thanking them, right? If you take it, it is plagiarism. This is what the basic concept of plagiarism that persists, right, in our field. This can apply to anything from term papers to paragraphs to songs, even ideas. Of course, this word comes from Latin word plagiaris, right, which means kidnapper, and it was borrowed into English as plagiary, right, into 17th century. Now, there are types of plagiarism, or you may call it copying. The most well-known and sadly the most common type of plagiarism is the simplest, that is what we call copying. Copy paste, right? This is the word now. I think copy and paste, these two words, we use it as single word. If you copy someone else's work and put your name on it, you have plagiarized, right? This is a simple thing that all of us know. Now, in fact, there's a lot of plagiarism in Bollywood as well. Lot of plagiarism, right? Just you watch this video, you will realize, right, that there are not many songs copied, right, in Bollywood.
Sir, it is not audible.
Yes?
Sir, it is not audible, the music that you have played in your presentation.
I-
I think you need to unmute it.
That is unmuted only, but
Yeah, you have to unmute it.
fine. There is some problem. I don't know what is problem. Right? Let us go ahead. So not only songs, right? There are some songs I wanted to share with you, but I couldn't. Uh, Not only songs, but whole movies also. If you look at, right, there's the English movie or the movie which is the original one, you may say, and there is another, right, the copied version or plagiarized version in Hindi. Suppose a common man, then a Wednesday, fear, that was of course the that we had in Hindi. Not many movies that you will see over here that have become very popular, but ultimately they are not the original ones. Right? They have been plagiarized, they have been copied from other sources, right? Other movies of other languages. Suppose Mrs. Doubtfire, Chachi 420 that we had, that Poor Society, Mohabbate that we had. So plagiarism.org defines it, and I think this definition includes almost everything. Turning in someone else's work as your own, right, that is plagiarism, and copying words or ideas from someone else without giving credit, again, right, it is plagiarism. Failing to put a quotation in quotation marks, that is again plagiarism. Straight away, right, you omit the quotations and as if you are saying this thing, you are quoting this. So that is also again plagiarism. Giving incorrect information about the source of quotation, misguiding in a way, right, that is also plagiarism. Changing words but copying the sentence structure of a source without giving credit, and that is again plagiarism. So, in fact, we have forms of plagiarism. One is verbatim plagiarism, that is copying text word for word from someone else's work. So, word to word, right? In a way, you copy everything. If content from several sources is duplicated, this form of plagiarism is known as a mosaic or patchwork. Right? So in between, right? In fact, there are some gaps, but in a way you have duplicated it from some sources, right? So that is called mosaic or patchwork. Then there is another form of plagiarism, that is plagiarism of ideas. Mentioning someone else's unique idea, whether in the form of a theory. Suppose in science it may happen, in sociology it may happen that there is a theory, that the person may claim that this is my theory, right? So in a way, again, there is some interpretation of the data or a method, an opinion or a new terminology without citing your source, even if explaining your own words, that is nothing but plagiarism. Types of plagiarism, of course, intentional and unintentional. Now, in intentional, copying someone's work, like it may happen that it is intentionally that you are doing it. Then buying or borrowing papers, right? So, of course, now with internet, right, you can Google so many such papers, and you can buy papers, you can borrow papers, and you can copy paste it right into your own work. Cutting or pasting text from electronic sources without citing them, right? A proper citation that you don't use it, that is of course intentional. Web content without permission that you are using. I think in academics there are so many teachers, right, in higher education that we have who have their own blogs. So what do they do? Without giving proper citation and acknowledging the source, they copy paste the content into their own blogs. It is nothing but in a way intentional plagiarism. Then unintentional, sometimes suppose carelessly paraphrasing, that is again of course in a way you can say is plagiarism, poor documentation, citation. Of course, it is unintentional. Sometimes the research scholar doesn't know how to, the researcher doesn't know how to document it, but it is plagiarism. Excess quoting and inability to write, to integrate own ideas, that is also plagiarism. Using our own work in some other article, that is again plagiarism. So that can be intentional, that can be unintentional as well. But of course, right, it is plagiarism. What are the reasons? Why do people, why do research scholars, researchers plagiarize? According to University of Alabama in 2014, right, these are the reasons. Lack of research skills, right? It means lack of understanding of research methodology. The research scholar or researcher doesn't know the research skills and therefore may lead the research work, right? Plagiarism. Then lack of writing skills. I think the greatest of harm that is done, right, in our research work is through, I think, lack of writing skills, especially with students. That happens. Then problems evaluating internet sources, right? So that is also there. Then confusion about how to cite sources. Again, you may say the person is ignorant about it. Then misconception about terminology. Then pressure. Then poor time management and organizational skills. Right? So the person is not able to sometimes, and that happens with most of the research scholars working on their PhDs or MPhils. It happens that they are not able to usually work according to right, their schedule, and therefore at last moment, right, suppose the last year, they are pressurized to work. So it is poor time management, and therefore they will take help of some sources, and without acknowledging them, they may cite. Then product-oriented writing assignments. Of course, it is professional one, but there also you will find such kind of short-term assignments, you may say, where there is a lot of pressure that you are supposed to present something, right? And therefore, you take help of some sources which, or you rather you copy them. Then there are cultural factors as well. Of course, in India, I think plagiarism is taken very lightly. UGC, of course, has come up, right, with some, in a way, strict rules, but I think in the time to come, we shall see whether we are able to implement them strictly or not. There are some more reasons, laziness as well. Some people that do that, they don't want to work very hard systematically, and therefore, right out of that laziness, they take help of right, some sources. Then fear of failure. The person may, in a way, have that fear in mind that I'll fail, and therefore they take the help of that. Suppose it happens that with NEC, that they demand, right, our research papers or our publication in a way. Now, when there is fear that our university or our institution or IQSC, right, may scold you or may say that no, you do not have good number of publication with you, and therefore sometimes I think people may take help of plagiarism. Then language jargon, technical language, when there is, right, something like that, people are not able to understand it, and they just cite it without any understanding. Publish to prosper. Suppose career advancement scheme, right? CAS is that only, right? In a way, you want to go higher up the ladder, and therefore you need some publication, and in that pressure, that you publish something, which I think may be plagiarized. Recognition amongst the peers, right? You want to, in a way, be recognized as a scholar in a particular field, so you have so many publications, right, in a way at your hand, and that's why in a way right, you want to be known among your peers in a way. Why? Sometimes I think it happens, right? This is also one of the reasons that research is what I am doing when I don't know what I am doing. I think if you ask research scholars in beginning, they do the same. That they say that I am researching on a particular topic, but I think they don't know what they are doing. That's in a way, in beginning for them, research is something that they don't know about it, and still they carry on their research work. So there is great chance that they may take help of some plagiarism. Nowadays, I think PhD scenario is this only. When you copy an idea of a writer, it's called plagiarism. When you copy the ideas of many people, it's called a PhD. Right? So sometimes I think when you take help of so many sources, but you don't acknowledge them, and you call it PhD. Right? It is not so. There is a proper method. Right? And if you don't follow that, then it comes under plagiarism. There's something like intellectual property rights, plagiarism, using someone else's work, that what we have already discussed. Of course, it comes under that. There is copyright law, which protects the author's original work, right? It gives them the protection. And in a way, it is copyright. It is their right. So if you use that, you have to cite that author. You have to acknowledge that author. Fair use, production of material for educational and research purpose. There is a lot of, I think, such material comes up now. This so-called net slat classes people, they use such kind of material without acknowledging the writer. They publish their own pamphlets or books without acknowledging the original author. Then, of course, there is software piracy. India, I think, we use a lot of pirated softwares. Right? If you go even to some government institutions, you will find that they are not using original Microsoft Windows, right, or Microsoft Office. So this happens in India as well. Then file swapping, as I told you, some digital material, audio or video, suppose a YouTube video, just without owner's permission, without acknowledging the person, you are putting onto your own blog. Right? It is nothing. It is called file swapping, and that is also again right against this intellectual property rights. Georgetown University, right, did a kind of survey, and they come up with this reasons in a way that they asked people. So why do researchers plagiarize? So here, major part of in a way 34% is that they say that we lack research skills. Then 26 again percent they say that lack of time. Then 22% they say that careless note taking, and 80% right they in fact were confused on how to cite sources. So it means lack of understanding of research methodology. Sometimes, right, this is also there, a kind of myth, misconception, that if the author has died, right, and if you cite the author, then of course it is not plagiarism. No, it is not so, right? It comes under the intellectual property rights, and you have to properly cite them, acknowledge them. What are the solutions? Avoiding plagiarism is the best method for avoiding it is to simply be honest. Right? I think there is no parameter, there is no measurement in a way. Of course, we have now some digital solutions, but still there are some limitations. Especially for English, it is good that this can work well, especially some plagiarism tools or some measurements that we have now, like or Turnitin. But for other regional languages, suppose here in Gujarat, we have Gujarat. Now, not much material is available on internet. It may be there somewhere lying in a book, right, in library. And if the person copies it, right, in his work, is it not plagiarism? Right? It is plagiarism. But if through that digital tool like Urkund or Turnitin, if we try to find out the percentages of plagiarism, it may happen that there is no plagiarism, it may show. The report may suggest that no, this one is original, but this is the limitations. In the end, researchers have to take decisions about how to carry out research that makes the process as ethical as possible within the frameworks of the project, including budgets of the time and finance which they have available to them. How to avoid plagiarism? These are very simple, very simple solutions. Reading something and putting it in your words, right? Then credit the author of what you read. So you cite them. Using quotation mark is another way to avoid plagiarism. Use quotation marks, acknowledge the person, cite them. Best way is do your own work. Right? Simplest of thing that try to write your own work, original work. Keep careful track of sources and notes. Right? That is also one of the things. Usually, researchers, scholars, in a way, right, commit some mistakes over here only. They do not have enough of right, carefulness that they track these sources. They write down these notes. Provide footnotes, and of course for your own previous article, so to avoid self-plagiarism, right? In fact, you have to take permission of the publisher. What are the punishments? Plagiarism may result in serious sanctions. Some punishments. First, public disclosure. Suppose tomorrow newspaper, right, may publish that so and so professor published a research paper, right, which was plagiarized. So it is public disclosure. Then loss of research funding. If you are, suppose, working on a research project and you have been funded by UGC or some other agencies, and if it is found out that your research work that you have produced was plagiarized, then of course loss of research funding also, loss of professional stature, and right, termination of employment. There are of course rules which we shall discuss later. Legal action against the individuals committing plagiarism. So legal actions can also be taken by a particular writer. Professional consequences. This is very important. Loss of credibility as a researcher. Nobody would, as a teacher, as a professor, as a supervisor, nobody would look at you with trust. Right? This is the, I think, great loss. Because as a teacher, you have earned trust. And as a researcher, if you don't keep an eye over what you do as a researcher, and you plagiarize some content, and you lose the credibility which you have earned as a teacher. Impact on getting hired. Suppose there may be some issues, right, over some works debated on in newspaper or within the circles of your university. If you have submitted for PhD and if you have been awarded a degree, then of course there may be impact on getting hired as well. The ghost of plagiarism haunts you forever in a way. These are some of the examples, right, where you see that of course there may be some professional consequences that people will have to bear. In India, right, this is of course times of India, real life consequence that there was a scholar who at Madras University was found out, so he was banned, right, because of the plagiarism. Then again, here real life consequence that a Management Development Institute suspends a professor for plagiarism. Even a singer like one John Bon Jovi, right? It's very famous, Australian. He was sued for 400 million pounds because he plagiarized a song, right? And lyrics of a song from other singer. P.C. Anand, professor of Delhi School of Economics, he says plagiarism in large parts is a consequence of a very poor understanding of the practice among members of the research community. Right? So it is nothing but a practice, it is a consequence of very poor understanding because people are not much aware about it. Now, very important thing, UGC in 2018 came up with the regulations. UGC, in fact, clarified the duties of higher education institutions, that it needs to establish the organizational structure as prescribed in the regulation. So it has already prescribed, it is an act also, like that regulations, enhance awareness about the responsible conduct of research and academic activities, promote academic integrity, and prevent plagiarism. So it is the duty of the higher education institution to prevent plagiarism. These are UGC's Code of Professional Ethics in 2018, right? The same one that which I referred to. So a lot of things in a way. Some of the important things, right? They discourage and not indulge in plagiarism and other non-ethical behavior in teaching and research, right? And in a way, this right act is called, or regulations are called, UGC regulation on minimum qualifications for appointment of teachers and other academic staff in universities and college, measurement, right, and maintenance of standards higher education 2018. So again, right here also, they have reiterated, you may say, re-emphasized in even professional ethics also. Now, to curb plagiarism, use of appropriate software to ensure the documents such as thesis, dissertation, publications, so that to find out whether the submitted work of research is plagiarized or not. Now, it is very important to facilitate by the higher education institution that one should get the facility of these softwares. Right? Again, I think this is one of the limitations as a research supervisor, as a research scholar as well, that they are not provided these kind of softwares or accessibility of the software. Make those tools accessible to all engaged in research, right? So even to a research scholar up to research supervisor, they should be provided these tools. Mandatory undertaking from students, right? Like that it is, and that's why you know that in beginning of thesis only or dissertation only, the research scholar would always say that this is my original work. Develop a policy on plagiarism, get it approved by relevant statutory or authority, right? Or provide the policy on the homepage of the HEI website. Then mandatory submission of soft copies to InfluNet within a month from the date of award of degrees. That is also now mandatory, so that it can become a part of Shodhganga repository. So your thesis dissertation will be there for the public to check it. So of course it has to be then checked for plagiarism as well, and that's why then only after it is uploaded. Mandatory creation of institutional repository, that is IPAC. It shall include the dissertation, thesis, paper, publication, and other in-house publication also. So whatever, suppose my university should always have on its website or repository my own papers, whether they, so for public domain, public can check it whether they are original ones or not. Now, penalties for research scholars, Level 0, similarity is up to 10%, then there is of course no penalty. It means up to 10% only plagiarism is granted. Then level 1, that is 10% to 40%. Again, you have to submit a revised script within 6 months. Then level 2, 40% to 60% to be debarred from submitting a revised script for a period of 1 year. Then level 3, about 60% cancellation of registration if it is more than 60%. Penalty in cases of repeated plagiarism. So what are they? Of course, there have been very stricter rules regarding it. Even plagiarism in academic and research publications. So all faculties over here, and I think this is for all of us in faculties, for our academic and research publication, what are the penalties if they are found plagiarized? Then these are the levels. Level 0, less than 10%, of course there is no penalty. Then it means again as up to 10% it is allowed, under 10% it is allowed. Then level 1, 10% to 40% shall be asked to withdraw manuscript. That's of course if you have submitted your paper somewhere for publication, if the publication house says that there is more than 10% in range to this 10% to 40, and there is plagiarism, then you'll be asked to withdraw manuscript. Of course, that doesn't happen much. Level 2, 40% to 60%. So shall be asked to withdraw manuscript. Of course, it is there. Then shall be denied a right to 1 annual increment. So you'll not get 1 annual increment if you are found guilty of plagiarizing up to 40 to 60%. Shall not be allowed to be a supervisor to any new masters, MPhil, PhD student, scholar for a period of 2 years. Right? So for 2 years, you will not be able to be a supervisor. Then level 3, about 60% shall be asked to withdraw manuscript. Of course, denied the right of 2 consecutive annual increments. Then shall not be allowed to be supervisor to any new masters again for 3 years if it is more than 60%. Now, if you look at this, and it is not only India, but of course, everywhere you find that there is a lot of plagiarism. This is first, right? Pie chart, right? It shows that there is fraud or suspected fraud. USA has a greater part. USA, of course, is now facing a great problem that the students at graduate level, they usually buy the term papers, essays that they are supposed to write as assignments. Right? In fact, they buy it. They get these papers written by some professional agencies, and therefore, right, they, of course, right, these professional agencies would not take care of these kind of plagiarism rules and regulations. So there is a lot of things. Even in Germany, in Japan, right, you find it. Suppose there is, right, in a way, a smaller part of India as well. Then plagiarism, confirmed plagiarism, it is not suspected, right? Then you have more, right, here. So it means that there is a lot of plagiarism there in India. Again, right, in some other countries, there is a lot of plagiarism. So it is not only India. Duplicate publication, again in India also there is, but in other countries as well. Real life consequences, as I was talking about, next presentation, wherever I do, if your name pops up somewhere in news, I may use it next time. People say, people blame that because of technology, right? I think plagiarism has gained a lot, but it is not so. Right? In fact, technology didn't cause cheating, it only made it easier. So, in fact, it is the use of technology, it is copy-paste what we call. Right? That is very important. That becomes the menace in a way. It is the intention of a person who is using technology to his or her advantage for cheating. And it becomes very easy because technology made it easier for you. But it is not because of technology. Technology was not invented for it. It's very easy. We make it look, I think, difficult. To avoid plagiarism, use online tools to check your plagiarism. Of course, you need to take care about it because they save sometimes, right? They save your data as well. So next time, if you use it for plagiarism check, then it may show that there is 100% plagiarism as well. Right? One of our faculties here in library science, she did that because we have implemented over here in Gandhinagar. She knew somebody there, a clerk sort of person, clerical person, who unofficially checked her thesis. Now that guy didn't know that there can be such that setting also that your whole thesis, each word, every word, right, can be stored on the server of Inflipnet in Urdu. So at the time, of course, the report suggested that there is under 10% plagiarism. So she submitted that her thesis to the university, and later it was found out by the university when they checked the level of the plagiarism that it was 100% plagiarism. Then she had to disclose it that unofficially, in fact, she took help of somebody and inflamed that. And then there was a lot of process that she had to do. And ultimately, then that data was, right, in fact, omitted or deleted from the server of inflamed. And again, then she could check her thesis. I mean, the university could check her thesis and it was approved. So such negligence or ignorance may lead to some other problems as well, like this. Provide links you have referred to, right? So it is very easy in a way, write in your own words. Of course, there are these, I don't wish to now discuss since we are running short of time, but there is Turnitin, there is plagiarismchecker.com, right? It is, then there is a plague tracker, there is plague scan, then there is plagiarism checker. In fact, it is very easy when you are in doubt, right? Cite it, say no to plagiarism. So this is very important, right? In a way, you can say that okay, fine, I don't want to, right, get into trouble. Just I'm in doubt. I don't know from where it has popped up. Just I wish to cite it. So remember, right, like this. Should I cite? Is it a quote? Right, this is very famous, so I don't wish to discuss it. Uh, then, right, in a way, plagiarism, it is a very severe crisis, right, faced by our institution of India, and researchers need more awareness about it. I think it is not, it is more about awareness. Usually it happens that as supervisors, as teachers, we make students fear about plagiarism. Rather, we should make them aware. And we should make them aware about the right ways of research. Right? UGC regulation 2018 is a bold statement from the side of government, and I think with the time to come, we shall come to know that what are its consequences if strictly, if we are able to use it properly and follow it, then definitely there won't be any problem. Since this was right my presentation on plagiarism, these are some sources which I have cited at the end. So this is not plagiarism, and I have taken enough of care. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your enlightening session. And really, it was enriching. We came to know about ethical research, ethical behavior, forms and types of plagiarism. and intellectual property rights and whatnot. Thank you so much, sir. But we have a few questions with us.
Yes. Yes.
We had two questions. One was from Parul, the teacher, and Shelly P. I think they
Yes.
have been asked by you. So I will move on with another question by Abhimanyu. I think Abhimanyu, would you like to ask your questions yourself?
Hello.
Yes.
Yes.
Hello. Thank you, Dr. Shubhra. Sir, I was going through your presentation and it was a wonderful presentation, very
Thank
enlightening.
you. Yes.
And I was taking down so many things because so many things were so new to me. Sir, I have gone through the concept of plagiarism. So we see the plagiarism is usually done at the university level because the research is done at the university level.
Yes.
How about the role of not the researcher, but the mentors who are forcing plagiarism, right? Because once a student is enrolled for PhD, they
Yes.
are asked to submit the synopsis, and in that synopsis, they have to
Yes.
cite the work on the topic on which they have the work is
Yes.
already been done. So, can
Yes.
we say it is the inability of the teachers in the university who cannot take up a new topic,
True.
and hence it encourages plagiarism? Number two,
Yes.
the students, often I have seen it is a very occurring trend in the universities that the students are forced to write their guide's name in their own research article. Is it a
Yes.
mandatory university guideline that your research article has to have your guide's name? So these are the two questions. Then I have lots of questions with me which I want to ask
Yes.
you. Sir, could you please
Yes.
help me with that?
Yes. You are right that since students, I mean, research scholars are ignorant about research methodology, right? Then directly they are asked to prepare synopsis. I believe first there should be coursework for those students who are willing to join a course like PhD or
Yes.
MPhil. They should be trained. I'm using the word trained
Yes.
properly for research methodology, and then only they should be asked to submit their research proposal or synopsis,
Yes.
because
Yes, sir.
they don't know as such what is research methodology, what is plagiarism. Simply they copy and paste whatever they see on internet. They even perhaps do not know the idea of literature review. Right? It means that they would be producing something which somebody has already produced. And that, therefore, I believe that sometimes nowadays the research work that we are producing doesn't have that much value.
True.
We, on our own, in a way, do not consider it to be, as a researcher, suppose if I publish my paper, I do not value it. Simply because I know that it is not new. It is not something new. So many people have produced it. That so many people have looked at that thing with the same angle. And then also I will be doing it. That for the sake of my, suppose, in a way you can say CS, career advancement scheme, or that some other means. So I believe, first of all, there should be, and I believe that UGC has done wonderful with new rules of in its 2018 regulations. They have already, I didn't have much time, but if you look at it, then they have already asked that you should create that kind of environment at the university, at
Right.
your institution. Right?
Right.
It means that what is original research work, they should be discussed at your institution, at university.
Yes.
Then and then only it can percolate to students. Now, here, tragedy is this, that when teachers are themselves are not very clear about it, how can our poor students, it's a scholars,
Yes.
right, who are learning, right? In a way, there may be steps towards research. They would definitely, right, in a way, commit some mistakes. So I think it's all about environment, and I
Very
believe
true.
research work should start from graduation level.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that you produce thesis, you produce
Yes.
research papers, right? Simple one page writing also can be original.
Yes, sir.
Teach something like this. Here, see how we curb the natural talent of our students. Suppose it happens right from our high school days, even school days also, our teachers would say, of language especially, whatever language it may be, when there is an essay, suppose there is an essay on monsoon, first of all, unnaturally, you are asked to produce an essay on monsoon during summer, right? And then the teacher would dictate you. And the teacher would say that you are supposed to write this only,
Yeah.
right? So here we are curbing the natural talent towards writing, their natural expression. This comes quite handy later on if students have this kind of exposure. Right? And that's why I think it's not all about research, but it is about being original in writing. Now, our examination system also doesn't demand that, and that's why that it adds to our poor research work, isn't it? Right? So I believe that there's a lot of change needed, but let us hope. And I would advise you to read these regulations of UGC 2018. Right? It talks about integrity in research, and it talks about, of course, the punishments as well. Hope I have answered your question.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Abhimanyu. So we have next question from Darshni Guna.
Yes.
Darshni, would you like to ask yourself, or should I ask on your behalf? Okay, I think I should ask. Darshni says a PhD student who has published her paper before her viva and later she cited her own paper.
Okay.
Would that be considered plagiarism?
Yes, it is self-plagiarism, right? Because you cannot cite, and just recently only, in fact, UGC, before I believe 4 or 5 months only, there was a circular from UGC that clearly defined self-plagiarism. And that if you publish something, uh, because your thesis, even if it is not published as a book, but it is a part of a course, because you are earning a degree out of it. So if you submit your paper before your viva, it means ultimately it may be from your thesis, right? So you cannot publish your paper which cites the direct words from your thesis. So suppose if I have written something in my thesis and I am writing a paper out of it, I should say that in a particular thesis to this university, Dr. Dushyant Nimavat has stated this. I myself, if I am writing, then also I have to use this one. I have to cite myself to avoid this self-plagiarism. Right?
Okay.
Right.
Doctor, I have another question actually. If the paper, say I am presenting in a conference and my paper is being placed in a proceeding, all right?
Yes.
So that proceeding paper, I would want to publish it in a journal. All right. How many percent of the proceeding paper need to be changed in order for me to publish in the journal?
See, one publication once only. You remember this rule. If it is published, right? We are using the word published. If it is published in proceedings, it means it has already got published. It is in black and white on paper. It means you cannot publish it somewhere else as your research paper. If you have orally presented it, but it did not get published somewhere in proceedings, then definitely you can publish right somewhere it as a research paper. But no, if once published as proceeding, no, not at all as a research paper again.
Okay, thank you very much, Doctor.
So we will take up the last question. That is
Yes.
from Dr. Shafia.
Yes.
Dr. Shafia, are you there? So I'll read her question. She says, back in 2018, I suggested my friend that she should publish a part of her original thesis chapter as journal article. She did publish it in a refereed journal. Is it self-plagiarism? Then second part, but back in March 2018, there was no such thing as self-plagiarism. In fact, I believe that one should publish part of chapters as journal articles or in book form. Now, is that journal article just useless?
See, first of all, it is not so that this idea of self-plagiarism wasn't there. It was already there, but I think there was a need that UGC found out that again it has to be redefined. That's why this circular has been issued. If you submit your thesis, it is a submission to get a degree. Right? It is there in Shodh Ganga as well. It has to be, of course, sent right for Shodh Ganga also. It means if you publish it as a journal article in any of your chapters, right, it is self-plagiarism. Right? Either you first of all publish it as a book and then publish it as a research paper, but with a different angle than it is original. But self-plagiarism has to be taken care in a way that, as I told you, I mean, when I answered the last question, previous question, at that time I referred to this, that even if I have to cite myself, I have to say Dr. Dushyant Nimavat writes this in this dissertation like this, right? So it means if it is part of your dissertation, definitely just as a journal article you can get it published, but you have to make some changes into it. You cannot publish it as it is, right? One of your chapters become your research paper. That should not happen, right? Of course, no journal article can be useless if it has been meticulously, like in a way, using all citation in a proper manner, research methodology crafted, right? So in a way, no research article can be useless. Of course, you need to think sometimes more about it, in a way, refine it, right, purely, and spend much time, right? So that is the thing.
Thank you so much, sir.